A big Tuesday welcome into lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream, as we keep you connected with different members of the Lewis and Clark alumni base, student athletes, coaches, and people from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community. Now 2 days a week, Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, and you can find all of our past shows available to watch on demand at lcpioneers.com. Just look inside the fan zone. Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, and a member of NCAA Division III, competing with other institutions from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and a chance for our student athletes to appear on the national stage as members of NCAA Division III. We're talking a total of over 430 institutions competing at that level. It's the largest division of the NCAA, and a chance for our student athletes to compete on a national stage. And that'll be fun to talk about today, because we're going to talk to standout Lewis and Clark track and field freshman Frankie Reid. In our first segment, just got back from nationals in North Carolina last weekend. And then in the second segment, we'll talk to Annie McCutchan, who is an outstanding women's golf student athlete for Lewis and Clark and a member of the class of 2019. So we'll have a chance to catch up with Annie and see what she's been doing since she left Palatine Hill. We always encourage your questions and comments. You can do so in the Facebook Live comments. It's been over a month since we've had a chance to see you on lcpioneers.com live, but it is great to be back with you. You can also always email us sports@lclark.edu and keep in touch. Maybe make suggestions for a future guest that you want to see on the show. We always encourage that, and we plan to keep the show going throughout the course of the summer and into the 2021-22 academic year as well, with this twice-a-week format on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can also get in touch with us on social media. Just go to LC Pioneers, both on Twitter and Instagram. A chance for you to connect with us there. We do post different things throughout the course of the summer, recaps of what has been an excellent time for Lewis and Clark athletics. It was a very good spring for the Pioneers by and large, so a chance for you to keep in contact there as well. We look forward to keeping you connected over the course of the summer, along with our Facebook page as well. And then visit our website too. It's the first day of June, so always like to encourage you to check out our website at the start of each month, and by doing so, you can also see that we have a June promotion for customized gear through the LNC Pioneers official gear store. Right now, a June discount. If you put in the discount code June21, just go to lcpioneers.com/gear for more information on that sale as well. All right, let's bring in our guest for today. The first guest, I should say, a freshman for Lewis and Clark track and field. We are excited. It's a pleasure to bring in Frankie Reid to the show. And Frankie, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, get a chance to recap, by and large, what seemed like an excellent freshman season. You're on the heels of that trip to nationals, as we mentioned. But let's start kind of with the origin story and get a feel for what brought you to Lewis and Clark in the first place. Describe why you chose LNC.
There are a handful of reasons. Obviously, the running program drew me in, and Coach Burrow. I got along with Coach Burrow, and I liked his vision for the program and for the team, as well as the recruiting class. I committed pretty late. I want to say it was maybe even in the beginning of June. So I knew what the recruiting class was going to look like, and I was excited to run with my future teammates. And also, I have a lot of family in the area, so that was also a big factor there.
When it comes to running sports, and I know cross-country season obviously is something that we'll look forward to now with the fall of 2021. But I always like to get an idea for training grounds and terrain and environment, right? Compare and contrast, going to Portland, Oregon from where you started in terms of the running environment. How are they similar and how are they different?
Running in Oregon it's you can't really beat that. It's kind of like the running capital of the world, I'd say. But like surface-wise, like the trails are beautiful, especially near Lewis and Clark, like Tryon State Park. That area is beautiful to run on. So I like the atmosphere a lot more in Oregon. It's a lot more like running centric. It's kind of like a hub for running. So it's definitely a cool experience running in the area. I'm from LA, so there's not as much of a focus on running there, but you got the beach and pretty much just running on roads, not too many trails, so there's definitely a difference there.
All right, I talked about it a couple of times, right? You have an opportunity as a freshman to compete at the national stage. And I don't want to get necessarily into the specifics of your nationals race, but I am interested what it was like to get the opportunity to compete at the highest level in NCAA Division III. Describe the experience going out to North Carolina.
Yeah, it was definitely a humbling experience. I'm super grateful for the opportunity to get to run there. It was cool to see that high level of competition in these guys that I hope I'm going to be racing for the next 4 years. Um, all in all, it was a great opportunity, and it was a great experience to see my competitors, see these teams that I hope to be racing against in the future, and get a feel for what my competition is going to be like going forward.
We're talking to Frankie Reid, freshman for Lewis and Clark Track and Field Cross Country on lcpioneers.com live. And I'm curious if you could kind of walk us through your eyes, maybe the last couple of weeks of the track and field season, right? You go to the last chance qualifier and you have a chance to set the third best mark in the entire nation, right? And then you have a chance to compete at nationals. What were some of the goals, the dialogue between you and the coaching staff, and kind of get us inside your head over the course of those last 2 weeks?
Yeah, so starting at the beginning of the year, the goal was just to win a conference championship, and I think I ran a little faster than the coaches anticipated to open the year. So the goal kind of shifted to make nationals, do everything you can to make nationals. So there's a huge, very heavy focus on that the whole year, and especially the last couple weeks. Um, Everything was just focused on running that sub 350, around 350 time to get me to nationals. So, but the last couple of weeks we definitely upped the training, and there's a lot more emphasis on running that specific time.
All right, so you go to nationals. You mentioned you have a chance to compete against individuals from across the country. Describe what the actual race was like once you got to the NCAA championships.
Um, I mean, it's a whole different ball game. You're running against uh, 12 kids, or more than about 15 other kids that are right at your level or faster. And I've experienced that all year. And you're running against kids from all over the nation whose goals are the same as yours, and who are trying to beat you. So that was definitely different, but it was definitely a great experience, and I was super lucky and honored to be able to run there.
Now, I've been focusing a lot on the competition, right? And some of the key moments throughout there, but I feel like I've led you into some of those questions. How about we just open it up to this? What was your best race this year? When did you feel like you were at your optimal self when it came to a competition this year?
Definitely the last meet before nationals, that last chance qualifier at George Fox. Not only was it my PR, but I definitely felt the best that day, and we executed our race strategy perfectly. And I even felt like I still had a little bit more left in the tank after that race. So I think that was definitely my best performance of the year, and definitely when I felt the best.
I want to have an opportunity for you to talk about this team at large, the coaching staff included. But let's start with some of your teammates. I even saw, Connor Robertson, right, was in our chat earlier watching the show, and it seemed like every race Connor went out there for this year was a PR and a PR. Etta Moen had an excellent racing year on the women's side of things. As you look at this team, your teammates on both the men's and women's team, what comes to mind in terms of what this team can accomplish?
Oh, endless possibilities. I think the future is super bright on both the men's and women's side. I'm super excited to finally run as a group in cross country next fall, because I really see that the possibilities are endless. I think there are definitely national trophies and conference championships in the future. They're definitely in store for this team, and I'm super excited to see what they can accomplish. I mean, my teammates have already shown just a little glimpse into what they're capable of this past track season with Etta won the conference championship in the 5K. That was awesome to see, and I felt like Connor, like, he couldn't stop PRing. He just kept running faster and faster. So that was awesome to see there.
Frankie Reid is our guest on the show today, lcpioneers.com live, presented by PiosStream. We'll have Annie McCutchan join us here in a little bit, an alumnus of the women's golf program. You can tune into the show Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, and we'll have shows continuing on through the summer to keep connected with our student athletes as they're off campus or as they move on post-graduation, depending on their moment. You're the West Region track athlete of the year. When you got word that honor came down, what was your reaction?
I was super thrilled. I was super pumped. I'm not sure I was really expecting it, to be honest. There are a lot of great candidates from other schools, especially like Josh Fry, who was also in the 1500 and the 8 at nationals from Colorado College, and so it's a huge honor. But the feeling of getting it is not a lot beats that, just because I was kind of a little bit of a surprise to me. I was kind of just like sitting in the backseat of the car, and Coach Campbell and Coach Rowe were just like leaned over, and they're like, "Oh, you're the West Region Athlete of the Year." So that was really cool.
And then also, I mentioned I wanted to give you a chance to talk about this coaching staff. What's that shift like going into freshman year at the collegiate level, and how do coaches play such a big part in making that adjustment?
Yeah, it's definitely a big adjustment. You got a lot more schoolwork. You're on your own now. You have to like buy groceries. You have to be a lot more responsible. So that's definitely a big shift. But the coaches handled it really well. Just talking about from a training aspect, the coaches, they don't force you into a huge shift in training right away. They build you up to it. Workouts slowly start, the difficulty of the workouts slowly start increasing. Stuff like that, where make it so you're not getting injured. You're not forced into something that your body's not ready for. So I think the coaches especially did a good job of making that transition into the college really smooth.
All right, let's shift the focus then to the academic side, right? First year in the books, a chance to come to Lewis and Clark and start to figure out kind of your path when it comes to the academic side of things. What were some of the highlights from that side of your life over the course of your first year?
Just being in classes that I was really excited for was definitely a huge plus. My professors were all awesome, getting to interact with them and my classmates, and just being in person, being back in the classroom was awesome. I don't know if I was really expecting that either. So to be, even though it's like a hybrid setting, being back in the classroom, interacting with my professors and my classmates was definitely a huge plus, and I was really happy to get to experience that this year.
We wish you the best of luck as you move into the summertime. I can't help but observe the fact that you said you're from Los Angeles, but you're wearing a Giants shirt, and I'm not quite sure how to connect those two. Giants fan from Los Angeles?
I know. It's definitely a rare sighting. My mom is from San Francisco. She grew up a San Francisco girl, so we're kind of a big Giants family. I'm actually going to a Giants game tonight, so I'm excited for that.
Well, I bet. It's good to see they have an opportunity to watch the Giants play. I've been to that ballpark. It's a beautiful setting for baseball, so I
it is
hope you
very
have fun.
beautiful.
Frankie Reid, thank you so much for taking time to join us. As Shelly Reid says in the comments on Facebook Live, great season. Can't echo that enough. You did an outstanding job representing Lewis and Clark, and look forward to future success for sure from you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. That's Frankie Reid joining us on lcpioneers.com live. That was a lot of fun, and honestly, first chance for me to talk to Frankie in person, even though, again, through a screen. And that's what's cool about some of the positive things that you look at from something that you would otherwise not want to have, right? No one wants a pandemic, but we've had an opportunity with lcpioneers.com live to have more conversations with not only our current student athletes, and obviously Frankie, a freshman, one of our most recent, but then our alumni as well. And that's what's going to be exciting coming up here in about 10 minutes with Annie McCutchan. We'll talk to the women's golf alumnus from the class of 2019. But during the course of the pandemic, we didn't have the opportunity to be on campus as much as you would normally have in a non-pandemic year. And so not getting to meet the freshmen, the first-year student athletes, like I normally would, and likely in the fall, that'll return to more of the routine that we were used to pre-pandemic. But that said, it's good to talk to Frankie. Frankie was kind enough with Coach Burrow and Coach Campbell to send me some quotes after the Nationals race, but I missed the chance to go on the road and have a chance to highlight a national competitor with Frankie. So hopefully we'll have that opportunity coming up next year. And then it's good to hear that he gets to check out a baseball game. Hope everyone's being as safe as you possibly can right now. I mentioned this at the top. Invite you to get in touch with us on social media. Go to lcpioneers.com and check out all the news that's going on there, including getting a discount on Pioneers gear for the summertime. We have articles, recaps, if you will, of a lot of Frankie's recent adventures, all Northwest Conference selections for baseball and softball. Even rowing had all conference selections coming up on the heels of the Northwest Conference Championship. All of that information is available at lcpioneers.com live. And if you missed any of our past shows, we always encourage you to check them out. Now, we have several places you can do that. Inside the fan zone at lcpioneers.com, of course, but you can also find all of our past shows on our YouTube page. And what's been great about building out our YouTube presence with lcpioneers.com live, and thank you so much for all of you who have subscribed to our YouTube channel. That'll give us an opportunity coming up in 2021-22 to add more content to the YouTube channel as well. We're looking forward to that as soon as we possibly can. And last but not least, reiterate the chance to follow us on social media by doing so on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle on both of those platforms is LC Pioneers. You can also find all of our links inside the social directory at lcpioneers.com as well. All right, let's do this. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with Annie McCutchan, a class of 2019 alumnus of women's golf. We'll talk to Annie about what's happened since she left Palatine Hill with the class of 2019 and had an outstanding career with Lewis and Clark. A lot of first place finishes, a lot of team success as well. So we'll have some of the best stories of Annie's time as a Lewis and Clark student athlete as well. So it's all ahead on this edition of lcpioneers.com Live. We'll be right back.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts. Because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.
Welcome back to lcpioneers.com Live, presented by PiosStream, as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and members from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community now 2 days a week, Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live. Invite you to get involved. You can do so by putting something in our Facebook Live comments, or you can always send us an email to sports@lclark.edu. Excited for Thursday's show. We'll talk to the head strength and conditioning coach for Lewis and Clark. Coach Ange will join us, as well as an all-Northwest Conference selection from women's rowing. Skyline Alcorn will join us as well. I will tell you that as excited as we are to be back for the month of June, there is a good chance we'll have no live shows next week because I might be on vacation. So while it's been quite a hiatus since we hadn't had a show since the end of April, we are excited to kind of get back to a regular basis, if not starting this week and then taking the time off next week. It's toward the middle of June and into July and August as well. We had Frankie Reid join us for the first segment. We are now excited to welcome in class of 2019 alumnus of the women's golf program at Lewis and Clark. Annie McCutchan is with us today. It's great to catch up with you. It's been, I mean, honestly, it feels like 2019's been some time ago at this stage. But I can remember getting the chance to see you compete in your final tournament with Lewis and Clark. We'll get into some of those topics as well. But we kind of like to catch up with people when they haven't been around for a couple of years. So describe what you've been up to since you left Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, so after I left Lewis and Clark in 2019, I was actually bouncing around in between a couple labs. I was at OHSU for a little bit, and then I worked in a fuels testing lab, being a chemistry major. But I finally was able to settle down at where I work now, actually testing cannabis. It's sort of a regulatory lab where we conduct routine testing for potency, and also, I'm in my office right now. There's a lot going on. We do testing for potency, pesticides, and solvents. So we really, it's almost like a public health sort of concern of ours to really make sure the product that we send out is meeting all the required criteria, and it's really it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
And you've stayed in the Portland area. Was that intentional? Was it just the opportunity to have employment posts, or did you want to stay in the Portland area as well?
You know, I think it really had to do with the job I found myself in now. I love Portland. I was thinking about going to the East Coast, and even back to California at one point. But I really feel settled down here. I love it here.
Well, and we always like to have the opportunity too to ask that origin story, right? So if you go back to the original reason you chose to compete at Lewis and Clark, what comes to mind as some of the things that you were looking forward to?
Why I chose Lewis and Clark,
Yeah.
is that what you're asking? I chose Lewis and Clark, mostly the appeal was being in Portland, Oregon, and the ability to get an amazing liberal arts education while competing at an NCAA level. That was, just an opportunity that I didn't see happening anywhere else. So that was huge. And, still, I'm so happy I did come here, because being in Portland, I was able to just graduate, find a job, and get in the industry. And it was a great transition.
We're talking to Annie McCutchan on lcpioneers.com Live, class of 2019 alumnus of Lewis and Clark golf program. You mentioned the opportunity to compete, and that was part of that opportunity too, kind of a great combination of location and the liberal arts education and a chance to compete with the women's golf program. Describe getting into the golf rhythm once you get to college. I mean, it's rigorous going through the Lewis and Clark academic program. How do you balance that aspect along with trying to be, I mean, you were a top level competitor in the Northwest Conference.
Yeah, that was crazy. I really do look back on it, and like, I'm sure a lot of student athletes look back and be like, wow, I really did that. I really was competing and a student at the same time. That, I mean, how I balanced it was, again, it's unique to Lewis and Clark. I was able to connect with all my professors and really get on the same page with them, and say, hey, I'm a student athlete. I need to compete, but I also am committed to academics, and I used all our resources that we had for academics. Um, so that was a huge thing I was grateful for. I don't know if I would have been able to do that balance anywhere else.
And if you can elaborate on that, because I always think about the college experience is, you go into it, right, and there's going to be a field of study and an academic program, but a lot overlook the services, and you call them resources, that are available to students. If there was one or two that stood out and really helped you, elaborate on what they are and what they did for you.
Yes. Well, I was pretty much always in office hours. My professors had really, really generous times that they offered us. And I also was in the squirk a lot. The student, I honestly don't even remember what it stands for. At this point, I just knew it was a squirk, but that's where you would get a lot of help with all your STEM homework. And relying on other students as well, just in small groups in your classes. Um, Again, the unique ability for us to be in these small class sizes, we got to really collaborate with each other, and that was huge.
And when you look back at the opportunity just from an academic program side of things, was there a class or a professor that even to this day, like, you remember something about that particular instance where it's like, wow, I'm really happy that I had that experience? If I ask you that question, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I think, again, just, yeah, I'm looking, yeah, I'm thinking about even like outside of my chemistry major. Um, Honestly, one of my favorite classes I took was electronic music with Jeff. I don't even remember his last name, but Jeff was so awesome. And we could just go into the studio, this really nice high-tech studio, and just record whenever we wanted and whatever we wanted. And he was such an awesome professor, and I think, honestly, that class has impacted a lot of how I think about music and even sound to this day. That was huge. But other than that, within my chemistry major, I have all my professors to thank, just being in office hours and them being so patient with me.
It's interesting you bring up that electronic music class. I mean, that's not unlike a lot of the conversations we've had on this show, where there was something outside the major, maybe that you never expected, that it clearly had an impact on you as well. Back to golf, you have an opportunity with golf to compete all over the Pacific Northwest. Sometimes you're traveling with the men's team too. Other times the women's team and men's team are at different sites. You obviously have the three postseason Northwest Conference majors that are big deals. As you kind of look back at how you form relationships within the team, how you become a member of the team, what was it like to be part of the golf team at Lewis and Clark?
Yeah. Well, it was really a journey from freshman year to senior year. It was, being Classilla. We had the biggest size team when I was an incoming freshman, so I was super lucky to have this core dynamic with like a handful of people who I was there with throughout the whole 4 years. And the ways we would bond, I guess, is just obviously through traveling and going through the ups and downs together. A lot of the downs being weather and just fatigue and the various hotels that, it was really an adventure the whole time, like many athletes experience. So you know, it's the hard times and the good times. Yeah.
I always like to have stories, and so if I ask you about a memorable moment from your time on the golf team, what's the best story that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I have many, and a lot of them have to do with my senior year, just finishing out with my teammates. And off the top of my head, it has to be very last tournament of my career, which was at Wine Valley in Walla Walla. And it's a beautiful course. And the first day, the weather was just so absolutely unpredictable because the wind was up to, I mean, people were losing their umbrellas. Like, we couldn't even swing properly because the wind was so strong. We just thought that we were going to get wrecked for our last tournament. But the second day, it was beyond beautiful conditions. It couldn't have been better. And it was just the perfect ending to my career. I had one of my lowest rounds, and it was a lot of fun being there.
Well, I remember having a chance to travel and check out Wine Valley at the tail end of the 2019 season. It was a lot of fun. It's a beautiful course. It's just susceptible to a ton of wind when it comes up like it did.
Yes.
Annie McCutchan, thank you so much for taking time to catch us up on what things have been like since you graduated back in 2019. And we'll definitely give you a call again to catch up once more.
No problem. Thank you so much for contacting me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time. That's Annie McCutchan on lcpioneers.com live. Really fun to catch up with the alumni. I mean, we've talked about that. This show has been tremendously valuable in the chance that we haven't had the opportunities to talk to people who, like Annie, recently graduated from Lewis and Clark, and we've had alumni from the Hall of Fame type caliber. We're talking alumni from the 60s and the 70s on the show. We've had conversations with folks who haven't been on campus for 20 years, classes of 2000, 2001, et cetera. So that's been a lot of fun with the show, and have an opportunity to catch up with people and see how things are going since they were last on campus, and Annie's no exception. I remember Wine Valley too, and as a photographer, you'd be at the top of some of the hills overlooking the golf course, and wasn't there on the day that she was talking about with the wind and a lot of the umbrellas being gone, but I can picture what that could have been like, because again, you're up at the top and kind of shooting downward toward where some of the holes are. They're great positions for photographers because you have a chance to get multiple holes at once, but as a golfer, kind of being in those canyons and such, I imagine that would have been a tough experience. But Annie stepped up and went this all-conference caliber, clearly, with what she was able to accomplish for Lewis and Clark. So fun conversation with both Annie and Frankie Reid. If you missed any of the show, of course, you can watch it on demand. Stay on Facebook Live. It'll get archived. You can watch it back, or, of course, go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/LCPios. And coming up on Thursday, we'll talk to the head strength and conditioning coach of Lewis and Clark. That is Coach Ange, everyone's favorite. Have I think our third conversation with Coach Ange on the show. And then Skylin Alcorn will join us as well. Speaking of all-conference caliber, was recently named an all-conference first-team selection for women's rowing. So I'll have a chance to talk to Skylin as well. That is coming up on Thursday. Please bookmark lcpioneers.com/live. That takes you straight to our page on lcpioneers.com to the Facebook Live page. And you can see all of our past shows, as well as see the schedule for upcoming shows on that page as well. Until we have a chance to talk to you on Thursday, I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks again to Frankie Reid, Annie McCutchan for joining us on today's show. Everybody who is in the Facebook Live comments, and of course, we encourage you to get in touch with us via email to sports@lclark.edu, and we will see you again for more of the show coming up on Thursday. Until then, goodbye, everybody. Thanks for hanging out.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my two group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.